Hey, right. Start with the formalities. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community in local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddulph Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. Now, clearly, Councillor Hart, Andrew, I'll call him Andrew, is not with us today, but I'm sure he's in all our thoughts. I did bump into Wayne in the week, who gave me an update, and it was far more worrying than I would have liked it to have been, but I'm hoping that things have started to go in the other direction.
I guess so.
Andrew.
Sir Jones and Redfern have visited him in hospital as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
You're taking the thing for the woods.
So,
You say. Can you just keep your senior in check, please, Mr. Deputy Mayor? You're not deputy.
so apologies and any substitute members.
With no substitute members this evening, apologies from the same as Town Council, Councillor Twaley, Hart and Harder. No, they will know well state to the proceedings.
So, starting with declarations of interest, we'll do them both together. Disclosable pecuniary interest and dispensations, or any other interests. Councillor Salt.
Pecuniary, my husband works for Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service and we'll be talking about their consultation.
Is that it? Fantastic. Item 34, minutes. To approve and sign the minutes of the Recreation and Committee meeting held on the 10th of September and it's just gone through full council and was approved there. So I'm assuming everybody's happy for me to just, we don't need to vote again, do we need to vote again? Well, everybody happy with those minutes that we approved there? Okay, item 35, to consider Town Council highways priorities for the emerging County Council local transport plan. Yes, they do have one. Who am I?
I'm happy to speak about that.
Okay.
Obviously the County Council are putting together their local transport plan that takes them forward for the next sort of 15, 20 years, I think, of investment there. I attended, as I informed you about at the last meeting, the Town and Parish Council session on that. There are 8 priorities, and they'd like us as a town council to put forward 3 of our kind of top 3 strategic priorities for them. They're asking all town and parish councils to do that. So I thought it would be a useful opportunity for us to just kind of maybe cover some old ground in terms of things that we want improved in terms of highways. So highways in this sense, this transport plan is quite broad. So it's not just roads, it can be buses, it can be footpaths, it can be cycleways, it's any kind of means of getting from A to B, essentially. So things that, I mean, we kind of have a strategic priority that is footpaths and include a number of, potential improvements within that. Doesn't mean we have to have one activity within that kind of particular area, but they're asking us for 3 key strategic priorities for us.
So, thank you for that, Chief Officer. Start with Councillor Proudlove and then Councillor Salt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Sarah's just sort of broadened it, obviously the agenda items as highways priorities, and the point I was going to make was the County Council's local transport plan is obviously much broader than simply highways, but Sarah's captured everything else. Obviously, there are lots of challenges associated with transport for Biddulph. And I think it's also important to consider that this local transport plan could set the context for whatever goes on regarding devolution deal that's in or potentially in the offing. Because one of the key themes of the devolution proposal will be transport. And it'd be anticipated that through a devolution deal, additional resource could come to Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, to deal with transport priorities. So I think it would be good if we could consider what we think our priorities here would be. Me personally, I would be suggesting that public transport would be high on the agenda, but also things like active travel. Be from me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crowell. Councillor Salt.
It would be remiss of me not to mention more frequent morning services to local colleges in the city. I think that is a massive issue for our young people.
Yep.
Almost every week, someone's saying that the bus drove past because it was too full, or I can't get there for a particular time in the morning. Certainly, I mean, as the day ekes out, colleges and the way that they're set up mean that not everybody leaves at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but everybody needs to get there for pretty much 9 o'clock in the morning. And currently they can't. The volume of young people is greater than the transport services provided. And if we want to create opportunities for our young people in this town, then getting out of this town to access specialised education is an absolute priority.
Read. Councillor Yates.
Yes, I mean, there's a number of projects which have been working on with DHP and things which come into this. But one of them, which again is linked, there's two together. Like one is safer routes and safer zones around schools, both in terms of public transport and walking, which was a big discussion item, because in the morning we had a councillor session, and that was a big discussion item. That is something which is being hammered home by every single town and village within the county, is that there's far too many cars dropping off children at school, and what is the logic, what is the reason for that? So there's a lot of work which requires doing that. Part of it is the parental choice and picking not the closest school, so it's a little bit further away and travelling. But if that's the case, then you've got to have, connectivity with the bus services and public transport, safe zones around schools, so parents feel confident to allow them to walk through a non-congested area, and the connectivity through that. Linked to that is improving the footpath connectivity to the town, specifically from Gillow Heath. There is not a continuous footpath from Gillow Heath to Biddulph Town Centre, and when you consider how many people live on Gillow Heath, it's awful. So I'm funding a project at the moment, looking at the bridge at the bottom of Station Road, which is where the discontinuity is. But again, I think the capital nature of that means it needs to be part of this plan. It'll never be financed by, independent councillor funding. And within that is also a whole village traffic management solution for Biddulph Moor. I've had the result, belatedly, I've had the results of my long-awaited traffic survey. At the moment, it's in confidential until I've had a chance to discuss it with the transport officers. But it is a lot of money to do the job. It's one of those things where you want to do, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And it does require a considerable investment to do that. Hopefully, it'll be released into the public domain within the next month, and then we can have a proper debate about it. And obviously, Councillor Jones was heavily involved in that at the start. And the final thing is something which we've all aspired to in the Moorlands, is connectivity in the Moorlands and bus connectivity over the Leek. That fits in with the Leek College. It fits in with the fact that Leek have had £17 million levelling up fund and have enhanced their tourist and visitor offer, including the market. And I think we should actually, our residents should be able to take part in that, by having the accessibility.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to publicly thank Councillor Yates for his work on this overall traffic management plan for Biddulph Moor. As I said, I won't give any detail because it's not in the public domain yet, but it's hopefully going to make Biddulph Moor a much safer place if we can get it to fruition. I just wanted to add, you say there's no walkable path from Gillow Heath to Biddulph. There's certainly isn't one Biddulph Moor to Biddulph, but that's the probably because nobody wants one. That's, they don't really want to have that connectivity from the feedback I've got. It's a shame, really. Obviously, there'd be no opportunity to put a footpath up either Smithy Lane or Park Lane, the entire length of New Street. But there was talk about putting them onto nettle beds, but public consultation that led me to understand that people were not very keen on making people from Biddulph, make it easier for people from Biddulph to get up there. I think some of them would have a watchtower and a machine gun if they had a chance. I'm saying this with tongue in cheek for the public.
This isn't recorded.
I'm saying it tongue in cheek, but there's no will. When anybody starts thinking about putting a footpath to Biddulph Moor, there's much will for it. But thank you for your efforts on the traffic management, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Lawton.
Oh, thank you. Right, I'm going to mention buses, if I may, but also other aspects. Start with other aspects, please. I'd like to see in particular a better low traffic, almost traffic-free environment from Biddulph Valley Way into the town centre. I've noticed this year, living in the vicinity, more than ever, people are obviously cyclists or walkers using Wharf Road and doubtless heading to and from Biddulph Valley Way. And I think this is a major tourist, if you like, facility that we could pursue. That's within footpaths. Parking.
If I could just note, I'm coming back to you guys, but just on that point, Councillor Yates has just said there's a point of information that might be useful to you.
There is a project which perhaps more history councillors from Biddulph have been working on. The Wharf Road employment site is as part of the local plan. And we have been driving hard since the new administration has taken over to actually get that delivered and use the access road to the occupied business sites there alongside the side of the telephone exchange, which would take the heavy vehicles off Wharf Road. Because there's two driving points. One, Wharf Road isn't suitable for those heavy vehicles, and the residents within that part of Dorsey Drive and Thatcher Grove have suffered far too long with those vehicles. And secondly, it is a long-standing aspiration from when Biddulph Valley Way was first upgraded in 2002 to make that effectively a connected cyclist and walking route into the town. And I've certainly never forgotten that from the work which was done in 2002. So I'm hoping in a relatively short period, unspecified, that we will be able to deliver that.
Thank you. Thank you for the point.
Sorry to stop you in full flow there, Councillor Lawton. Back over to you, because I know you're not finished.
Second aspect, parking, and perhaps a different angle on parking. I realise that many of the older roads in Biddulph in particular have become basically linear car parks. People haven't got off-road parking of their own, and consequently have to park as near to their premises as they can, their homes as they can. And I think that's an ongoing problem and will become a bigger problem with the increased use of rechargeable electric vehicles. Where are people going to charge their vehicles up without running trailing cables across the footpath with the safety hazards of tripping? And that's why I think this matter of parking in those areas over the period of the plan is likely to become an ever contentious issue.
Once again, I have a man with a point of information and he's sitting to my left.
Firstly, car parking in the context of provided car parking is a district council function, not a county council function. And I think one of the things which I would like to introduce to an appropriate space for a debate is potentially a need for a long stay car park in Biddulph. It's something which there has been meetings every now and again, because I think we are getting to the situation where, as you quite rightly say, I mean, you know, Councillor Garvey's gone, but he was talking to me about Tunstall Road. We were aware of the problems, Tunstall Road, John Street, Wells Street, spilling over into Moorfield Avenue, without mentioning others, Albert Street and places like that. Now, whether a slightly displaced, land is precious, whether a slightly displaced but in my view reasonable distance to a long stay car park would be acceptable to residents is another thing. So that, but I think that needs to be a debate on a forum, and I would like to propose that we do have that perhaps at the next transport working group meeting or something like that. We potentially fit it there, so to speak. I don't know. I'll take advice on that. And as regards EV charging, I'm happy to say that I have just signed off first 4 EV chargers to be fitted in Biddulph, which are going to be at the leisure centre and available for visitors, but also residents to use to top up, and they will be fast chargers. We are waiting for the Levi project, the local electric vehicle infrastructure project to deliver from the county, but that looks close 2030 than it does to 2025. District council charges on district council land will be delivered early 2025. The contracts have been signed.
Thanks for that. Just so people are up to date, I've got councillors Jackson, Redfern and Rogers in that.
Finished.
Oh, sorry, councillor. You've got,
The buses.
sorry, councillor Law.
We've seen an increase in bus services from Biddulph in the last 12 months or so, in a variety of different ways, never more marked than when we shut the high street. When the car show, wonderful car show, was on, last year, we had about 36 bus departures to arrange from the diversion stop. This year, 71. Now, that's the most extreme improvement on a Saturday, I will admit. But we have seen an improvement. If we look to ambition, I would say there's clearly this question about public transport capacity at school times and college times in the peak. And there's also the question of congestion around schools in the peak. And there's congestion that prevents the buses going past schools in the peak, which is part of the solution. So certainly there's work needs to be done there. And there's also the regular question, when can we have a bus to Leek Mark? Well, they say Leek, but it's really Leek Mark, I guess. So that's another. However, I think eternal vigilance is always called for. There's a new service being introduced in the last couple of weeks by D&G called Service K. It hasn't got a number, just K. And it actually runs from Keele University and Science Park by numerous or several centres of occupation to Chesterton Dragon Square. Now, I know another bus service that since January this year calls at Chesterton Dragon Square, and that's the number 95 from across here. So I looked at the 2 timetables to see how they fit it together. Would you believe it? The bus from Biddulph in the morning arrives 6 minutes after the bus leaves Dragon Square for Keele. And in the evening, unless students are out of the university by 4 o'clock, the service will have finished before they're ready to go home. So there's some.
What you're calling for then is integration.
Yes, joined up thinking.
Joined up think, yes.
Send me an email.
Thanks very much for that, councillor Lawton. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I was going to sort of bring up the electrical charging points, and Councillor Yates has sort of answered it, but we're talking about integration here, but the county council and the district council can't sort of, and the district councils, all of them, so get their act together on something. I know there's 2 separate schemes going on. It just from the county side of it does seem a bit long. From what I remember being promised several years ago, that the district council kicked their scheme more or less into touch because county scheme was so much better and much more integrated, and now we're saying that the district council one is moving at a different pace to what the county is. That's all, just a comment on the charging point.
Thanks for that, councillor Jackson. Now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do your final point of information before then I come to councillors Redfern and Rogers and we move on.
The district EV charging strategy is integrated into the county. We've looked at their heat maps, we've looked at where they're going to potentially be putting them, and we made sure that ours are complementary and offer an additional service. And the primary driver is servicing the Staffordshire Uplands visitor economy, which is why we're looking at leisure centres and the car park which services the Nicholson Institute, for example. But as it happens, they are available for residents, and residents can charge up a 250-mile range in barely 3 hours, which means that they can get some good turnover of their vehicles.
Thank you for that. Councillor Redfern.
I'll be as brief as I can on this. I think there is a consensus emerging, particularly around making sure we've got the capacity to allow our younger generations to actually get to the colleges, which will teach them many of the life lessons, etc., and particularly the skills that we will need going forwards, so that they are able to access good employment opportunities. So I think that's a thing. And the same with the schools as well. I agree, we've really got those. So I think those two are slightly connected, but slightly different things. But I will certainly add my weight to those as priority.
Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on 2 points if I can, please. The EV chargers, you say for the leisure centre. I was told when they resurfaced Walk Road car park, all the underground pipes were put in there ready for the cables, so they didn't have to dig that surface up. So obviously, can we look at EV chargers on Walk Road car park, which is partly there already? Underground pipes are, we're told. And another quick one about the bus to leak. People have been asking for a bus to leak. I'm not a big fan of promoting people to leave Biddle and go to another town. If Leek want to put on a bus and bring people to them is another story. But I'm not a big favourite of saying jump on this bus and leave the town. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. 10 seconds.
Warfare was covered by the Levi project.
There you go.
All right.
Councillor Jones.
Just quickly on the leak thing, thank you, Chair. Yeah, if Biddulph people want to go to Leek, we're here to serve Biddulph people. So it's a service they want and we should be promoting it.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying, and it's taking trade away from Biddulph. And you can argue that Leek should pay for it, but we're not talking about Biddulph Town Council paying for this bus. We're talking about it as an additional service, are we not?
Okay, then. Thanks for that, Councillor Jones. Now, based on what the original point was, our 3 key priorities, let's see if we agree. I mean, in terms of public transport, I got with the emphasis being on education and colleges. Would you say that came up as number one?
And if you include leak colleges, then that covers everything.
Absolutely.
I can say, so it's more as a theme rather than specific.
Yes.
I think that's the best way.
And another theme that came around was safer zones, parking and walking and footpaths.
Yeah, resolving the school congestion issue.
And then for third, I've got a number, so I don't know where we were thinking on third, but I've got Biddulph Moor mentioned, parking, EVs.
Can I just say this, Chair, just a little bit of an observation. I talk about education, but obviously at the very beginning of education, primary school, since the 93 bus has been running after 2:30, I actually saw a young lady with a child taking their child home from Biddulph Moor First School on the bus. And I thought that's brilliant. That means that people have got another school. You know, if you live in Biddulph, you can have your kiddie going to a different school. So that's a plus. It's a little thing I never even thought about. Just information.
Just add.
Yes, certainly.
So previously, we've done quite a lot of work on the pedestrianisation of the southern end of the high street. That's, I know, gotten down on the kind of long list of capital projects for the county already because of the work that we've done on that. So if you're happy with that, I'll re-emphasise that as a kind of greater vision, I suppose. That's not something that we would ever be in a position to fund. So maybe if the county are looking at funding, that would be marvellous. And quite a while ago, through the environment working group, we did talk about whether or not we could extend cycle paths on the kind of eastern side of the town, maybe kind of linking Park Lane into the back of the swimming baths estate that way. I wonder, do you still have that as an ambition? And maybe that's a kind of connectivity issue as well for the, you know, for young people who perhaps go to the high school and kind of go to schools on that side of town. That's something that would have been raised historically, but I don't know whether you want me to add that to the list or not.
Is this
Yeah,
related to what?
it is related to that,
Yeah.
actually. I think the two very pertinent points and the two absolute points which I would obviously want to give. I didn't include the town centre one because I thought that was more of a regeneration project and a driving for the high street as opposed to part of the local transport plan. But obviously it does affect the road, so I about that. That's the reason I didn't include that. But to me, that is absolutely pertinent and relevant, especially seeing all those vehicles parked on the double yellow lines and being an uncomfortable shopping area. The other thing is I think the coverall of the safer routes and the safe zones around school incorporates, enhancements at the Biddle Valley Way, possibly when that development site, if it ever comes up, enhancements at Wharf Road and enhancements on the east side, because there is absolutely fantastic scope for a relatively flat connectivity on the east side of the valley, which would be a boon for the local schools as well as actually for walking and fitness, move more strategy.
So Chief Officer, are you all right, do you think, for putting forward what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I can combine those.
Out of those three things.
Yeah. There's a lot of merging there, isn't there?
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for that. Thanks, everybody, for your input into that. And I'm totally behind what Councillor Salt and Councillor Redfern said with regard to the service for education. That's got to be key to all. Item 36. To consider establishing a tree network and tree warden project in Biddle. Do you, Chief Officer?
Thank you. So I was looking for some trees the other day, as I do, and we are a member of the Tree Council through our work with the Tree Charter, so we get their updates. And one of the ways to access trees was through your tree warden. And I thought, I wonder who our tree warden is in Staffordshire Moorlands, associated with the Tree Council. And there isn't one, and there isn't even a tree warden network in Staffordshire. So it's another one of those, I think, where it's usually the district or the county council who would kind of set up these networks and then support them through their existing kind of arboricultural work. But it's something that we could get involved and set up if they decline to do that. So I wondered how you felt about me kind of approaching the district or the county and just sort of saying, have you got any aspirations to have this sort of scheme? So it's essentially people who will kind of have an eye on trees, look at planting locations, support people in the community to plant extra trees, kind of do some work around enhancing trees in the vicinity, really.
Well, I certainly know that the district have got their tree man. It's Steve Massey, he gets brought out a lot, yes. But Councillor Jones, was that what you were going to say? Yes, he certainly attends a lot of the planning meetings.
It's a kind of voluntary position. It's a voluntary network with the trees. So whilst Steve might think he could, have an eye on it kind of thing, he absolutely hasn't got the capacity to lead that, but he might.
I think it's a case of Steve potentially providing advice on how
Absolutely.
be developed.
Councillor Rogers?
Many moons ago, our local tree wardens held a shelves, which was never really called on. SMDC did it themselves and didn't really call on local knowledge, which upset her at times, really, because she thought she knew things that they didn't. So if we do have a local tree warden.
Sounds like Hildy.
Sorry?
Sounds like Hildy.
Yeah, but that was the situation really called on. She thought she got a lot of knowledge that they didn't want to listen to.
Councillor Redfern?
It's just been made.
Oh, right.
Historically, we always had tree warden.
Yeah.
I forget who it was before Hilda, but it was one before Hilda.
I can't remember before Hills, but Hills was for many years. But
Jim?
Yeah. Councillor Kasicki?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good idea to have a tree warden. What about the maintenance schedule? It's all right planting trees, but if you're not going to be maintaining them and they're overgrown, which is quite a lot of trees along Meadows Way. So I don't know whether it's responsibility of the county council or the district council to prune them. In many cases, they haven't been touched for a long, long time.
I think if I may, I think the idea, it's more about kind of eyes on the ground, really, just to, because obviously the county or the district or whoever's trees they are can't be here all the time, can they? So it's about having some visibility and having an idea about places that would be enhanced by tree planting and that kind of stuff. It's just quite a nice voluntary position, really, but I didn't want to sort of pursue it with either district or the county unless you thought there was some merit in it.
I certainly think will be councillor Yates.
Yes, I think the contact for this should be Katie Hampton, who's the biodiversity officer and is leading on the implementation of the plan for nature. And I haven't spoken to Katie yet, but we have got an environment group here which meets on an ad hoc basis. And as we have got some pilot sites for plan for nature in Biddulph, as we have in the other major towns, I think bringing Katie over for a presentation on the plan for nature and the 30 by 30 targets, which is something which went to the climate change working group at district a couple of weeks ago, I think is imperative, never mind important. And that's the kind of question you can ask here, because part of that is to establish community groups and empower the community to actually get involved and help with the eyes and ears. So it fits in absolutely perfectly with this type of proposal.
Therefore, it's not a vote situation, but I'm getting the view that we're all in agreement here that we're happy for the chief officer to move forward to see how we could go about reinstating this project that we did already in the past.
Absolutely.
Make further inquiries. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Item 37, to discuss and confirm priorities for the old toilet block on Wharf Road.
So this is a project that's been going on for absolutely ages. Initially, we liked the changing places facility within that block. It still has the potential for water. The roof's pretty solid. We now have a draft lease, I believe, for that block. It's a long time since we discussed whether it would be a changing places facility, and I think since that discussion, the health centre have also been looking at providing some additional equipment and that sort of thing within their settings. So it might be that we need to have another conversation about that. But it's is that still your aspiration to turn that block into that sort of facility, or actually do you like the idea of using it for something else? Obviously at a further meeting when we've got some feedback on this lease, we'll need to have a very clear idea what we actually want to do with it. So I'm kind of bringing it back for some initial discussion, and then we can move it forward.
I can tell you that there's a lot of people that have jumped in here, so I'm just going to do it as my eyes set upon them. Councillor Rogers first.
Thank you, Chair. Can we make this short and sweet and say, yes, we'd like to get his hands on it and then talk about what we want to do with it once we've got it? That's pouring around ideas all night, won't we? In principle, if we get his hands on it, then we can decide on what to do with it.
Can I just make the point that when you get your hands on it, you then have to pay for it? So.
Oh, I thought it was a freebie.
Yeah, no, as soon as we've got it, we'll have to start connecting it to utilities again. We'll have to somebody will start inevitably charging us business rates on it and all that.
Well, that's a different story then, sorry.
There's no such thing, unfortunately, for us as a freebie. Before we even get anywhere close to signing a lease on it, we do want to be very clear what we actually want to use it for, and whether we've got our own funding or whether there is grant funding available to do that.
Yes, so do we get hence confirmed priorities if we do have it? Councillor Solid.
Yeah, I think we should still go for the changing places facility, even if the health centre might be investing in some additional facilities, because the health centre isn't open at the weekend. So when somebody comes to Biddulph Grange Gardens with a disabled person, they can't change that person at Biddulph Grange Gardens. There isn't the facility. So they could come and use a changing places facility at the weekend. When someone goes to Wetherspoons of an evening, and I have spoken to a lady with a disabled son who can't go out of an evening and take their son to the pub with them at Wetherspoons, because if he needed changing, he's an adult son, there's nowhere to change him and the night would be over and they'd have to go home. And therefore, to enjoy a night out and a nice meal in Wetherspoons, and if an accident happened, knowing that you could change your son and come back and carry on enjoying your evening in Wetherspoons, that facility down there would be ideal. So regardless of what the health centre were doing, it would only be available sort of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And any facility that we had available, I'm assuming will be accessible with a radar key and available at any time.
Yeah, I think probably not a radar key, because you can buy those quite, you have to, there's some quite
I can do some.
techie things that you can do now, codes and random generated things and all that, but
Yeah, there's also the disabled facilities grant funding, which we should be able to get to fund this, because there isn't the nearest changing places facility from Biddulph, as far as I'm aware, is the saleability stuff at Rudyard Lake. There isn't another places facility for what, 6 or 7 miles. So we should be able to get disabled facility grant funding to put that in place in that building. And I think it's a investment for our own community and people with additional needs that live within Biddulph, but also it's going to enhance the tourism attractions in the town, because you know that if you want to come to Biddulph for a day out, you haven't got to worry about toilet facilities. If your person's got a disability and family member's got a disability, you can use that service on the car park. So I would advocate strongly for using that building for a changing places facility.
I will just say to the camera that other pubs are available. Councillor Yates.
I think councillor Salt said it all for me. I would like to understand what the revenue costs are to us for running the changing places facility. I mean, I can't imagine it's onerous, but we do operate a lot of toilets and facilities and things, but in principle, yeah.
Councillor Proudlove.
Yeah, just following on from what councillor Salt had to say, I'd be of the opinion again that a changing places facility would be a good addition to the town's offer. And picking up on the DFG disabled facilities grant point, there is plenty of money in that pot available. Currently a risk meeting portfolio holder for communities, Councillor Charlotte Atkins, urged, although Alliance North have made a good headway into reducing the underspend, there's still lots of money there. And she urged, town councillors, there are any projects, town and parish councils, there are any projects in their areas to try and encourage them to come forward. So yeah, I think Councillor Yates is right. Revenue implications need to be considered moving forward, but clearly the capital works to deliver it. There's grant funding sat there waiting to be got at.
Certainly, I mean, in my opinion, having done a few DFG grants now, it is a very simple process. And, there was a 5 million in that sitting there that the previous administration just seemed to refuse to spend. I think we've managed to get through about half of it, but there's still plenty there. Yeah. And I know you're quite right. Councillor Atkins is stressing, not just domestic stuff. Let's get stuff community. There's not enough community ones coming. But over to you, Chief.
all I was going to say is when we looked at accessing DFG for ramp access at the front of this building, we were told we couldn't do that because it's a council building. I worry a little bit that DFG might not be available for us for that building, because that's also a council building. So
I can ask the question.
Yeah,
I don't know whether you know.
Not off the top of my head, but you asked the question, don't you?
Yeah.
The answer's no.
We might just have to find funding from somewhere else, that's all.
Councillor Kosicki. No? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of thinking about the health centre perspective to start with. Just thinking that the health centre is not doing this out of a thought of it's good for the community. It'll be what's good for that business, which is basically more or less what it is. So I'm wondering where they are getting their funding from. I find it hard to believe that they are going to fund this work on their own out of, whatever reason. So that would be interesting. And I think we need to be very careful. And I take on board exactly what Jill said. If you're going to have a facility, then it's one that should be accessible 24/7, not one that's in a locked up building. Now, I don't know whether thought of having something that's accessible from the outside. I don't know, but it does need, I think it does need a conversation with the health centre about what their sort of plans are. And if they have got some sort of external funding from somewhere, to see whether they'd come on board with a facility that covers both, but that does 24/7, which makes a lot more sense. And surely you get more bang for your buck for a facility that's open all the time than what you would have one that's open for probably less than half the week. But I think perhaps we do need to talk to them to see exactly what their plans are and tell them what our perhaps aspiration is, and to see if there's some way we could work together.
Right.
So how do you
Well,
want?
I think they're accessing DFG. They're hoping to access DFG funding.
Then, well, sorry, Sarah, if that is the case, then they're not going to fund two, are they? And we could certainly argue that if they are accessing that, or they're trying to access that, then obviously that's going to be a decision from the district council. The district council then have got to make a decision. If our scheme is sort of along the same track, it's for you, as the idea being developed along a similar timeline, the district council would have to make a decision. And I would hazard a guess that the district council would have to come down on a facility that's open 24/7 rather than once open half the week. I think the conversation needs to be, I mean, they might not be aware that toilet block could be used, and we've been talking about it for a while now. You know, the doctors might not be aware that is an aspiration that we've already got. It just seems rather silly having sort of two things for the same thing.
We all started the discussions at the same time when looking for suitable facilities. You know, obviously the lease for that block for us has taken 4 years, 5 years to come through. And in that time, they've, as I understand it, still been working up a scheme, which would work well for their customers, wouldn't it? You know, the people accessing that centre. So
Also, if they have got a scheme that is accessible 24/7
no, I don't
from
think
the outside,
yeah, it's not.
then you know.
I think that's the point, Chair, if I may, that, you know, actually, if it looks like for the first time in quite a long time, we're actually going to get a bit closer to having that block, then that's why I'm raising the issue again now. Till we've got sight of a lease or something that looked like that, there wasn't really much point in having further conversations. So, you know, now it looks as though we're closer to it. Reaffirming your ambitions, really.
Councillor Salt?
Can I just make a proposal that I believe, from listening to people, that we'd like that to be disabled, a change in places facility. But like you say, if it's already happening somewhere else, then, you know, it's a waste of public funds potentially. So might I propose that, yes, that's an ambition, but we won't tie ourselves down to it until Sarah's had some additional conversations to find out what's going on.
Yep, that's
That is a proposal, and we need a proposal. I'll second that.
okay. Yes, so we have a proposal from councillor Salt that Sarah does a bit more digging to find out the situation with regard to what's going on at the health centre. And then we return back here again when we've got more information to actually know what we're actually discussing.
It's another £5 fine.
So
Is there any football on tonight, Kev?
Seconded.
So are you proposing it, councillor Salt, seconded by councillor Yates? All those in favour that that's what we do? Yeah. Thank you.
I can't vote, so I'm not on this committee, just thought to that.
Item 38, to consider a town council response to the police, fire and crime commissioner consultation. Is this councillor Salt?
Nope.
No, is this you? Chief Officer?
We're trying to move this forward. It's essentially there are two questionnaires on the kind of on the website. You obviously link there, so you can have a look at that and see what you think. in terms of, it's their Survey Monkey questionnaire, so the fire and rescue, and there's another on police and crime. It's whether you've got any kind of themes, whether you want me to put something forward on our behalf, or whether you want something in a different format. We could write a letter instead of doing the Survey Monkey response, if you would prefer that. Any kind of key themes, anything you want to, essentially anything you want to bring forward at this stage so that I can work something up.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, Biddulph. I'm sad to say the crime is increasing a little bit in Biddulph, but the police are decreasing. I've got the greatest respect for the PCSOs, but we need some regular officers, don't we? PCSOs are limited with what the powers, etc. they've got and the times they work. You just need an old-fashioned Bobby on the street again. Because crime, unfortunately, isn't rocketed. But everybody knows it's going up a little tiny bit. It wants nipping in the bud. Simple as that. Before it gets any worse. So Bobby's on the beat, please.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, sorry about my phone going off, but I was trying to get onto the survey and I did get through the fire survey. And what stood out to me is Ben Adams is after a green flag to push forward with greater integration with the police and the fire authorities. And I'm meaning that physically with buildings. So he'll be able to say the survey, and I can't remember exactly how it's worded. Do you think that the police and the fire authority should work more closely together? People say, oh, that's a great idea. So then Ben Adams then comes up with an idea either to close a police station or close a fire station and lob the two together. He says, well, that's what the public wanted. So I think people need to be very careful how these things are worded, because, you know, there's a brilliant sketch in Yes, Prime Minister about a survey, and you can make the answers to whichever way
You want to
the questions are framed, quite frankly. And I think we need to be very wary that we're not giving Ben Adams a green light to do something that we perhaps would not agree with.
Are you suggesting that it's not a genuine consultation? Who did Councillor Jackson?
Wouldn't dream of saying such a
On camera. Dear me. Councillor Salt.
Well, I would dream of saying such a thing, and you can have it on camera. So I have prepared a statement. I don't know if you've read the Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service plan and consultation document. It's about 40 pages long. I have. I'd like to draw your attention, if you haven't looked at it, to pages 33 and 43. And I'd like the council to note this. You know that I'm married to a firefighter, and therefore I do have a little bit of perhaps inside knowledge that other people around the room might not have. So I'm just going to read something out that I wrote earlier. So there were 1,553 house fires in Staffordshire over the last 3 years, just in case you wanted to know. The Fire and Rescue Service plan mentions on page 33 of the document that the 3-rider policy, and for people that don't know what that is, they're allowing retained crews to have 3 firefighters on a fire truck, and there's a pilot scheme going on about that now. On page 33, they do mention that Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service consulted with firefighters, but on page 33, they fail to mention that the Fire Brigade Union repeatedly raised safety concerns about the 3-rider policy. It wasn't mentioned in any documentation. And since the pilot scheme has begun, there has been several reports of safety concerns raised directly with managers and the safety reporting system already. There's been an incident recently where a crew of 3 arrived at a house fire with persons trapped, and the fire crew decided to go into that building and did save somebody's life. But that incident put the crew at risk and also the public at risk. It placed the firefighters in a moral dilemma, which shouldn't have happened. A whole-time crew would never face such a dilemma, because a whole-time crew never go out with 3 firefighters, ever, ever, ever. They're only putting this onto retained crews. Given that Biddulph is served by a retained fire station, it's particularly pertinent. Given that retained crews know their communities intimately, the moral dilemma faced is even more profound. Imagine a house being on fire. Say it was my house now, 2 children in that house at the minute, husband's away on a night shift, I'm currently here, someone drives past my house, it's quite common, you know where it is, and the house is on fire. Someone rings 999 and reports a house fire. There's flames coming out of the building, and the control room could discharge Biddulph's fire truck with 3 firefighters on because nobody's reported that person's trapped. But my 2 kids might be in that building, but the person that's called it in might not know my 2 kids are in that building right now. So Biddulph's fire truck turns up at my house. They know it's James Salt's house. They know Jill Salt lives there. They know we've got 2 kids. And then you've got a fire truck sat outside, not allowed to do anything because they can see someone wailing from, you know, the back, and they won't go in, or they shouldn't go in because there's only 3 firefighters. And then they have to wait for another crew to turn up. Well, no human, if you've got a little bit of technology with you, is going to sit, if you know the person who's trapped in that house, and wait for another crew to get there while that house burns down. And that's the moral dilemma that this policy is putting fire crews in. So they've got to basically wait while someone's house burns down and they know the person that's trapped inside, or go in and get told off. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but if those firefighters choose to go in, they'll be going against standard operating procedures, because you're not allowed to go in a house fire with persons trapped with 3 firefighters. But they're not going to sit outside because they're human beings. So they're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. They're damned if they go in, because they'll get done, for want of a better phrase, from the fire service. And they're damned if they don't, because they're watching people that they know die inside a house fire. So the 3 rider policy, in my opinion, and that of the Fire Brigades Union, doesn't improve public safety. It massages data. It shows that Biddulph Fire Station is available more often, because previously data only used to show availability if there was a crew of 4 or more. But this time it shows that there's availability if there's a crew of 3. But actually, if the control room's got it right, they can't actually be discharged to any job that requires more than 3 firefighters. So it just massages data. It shows an uplift in availability, but doesn't improve public safety. Secondly, if a crew is sent to an incident and they do choose to sit outside, the clock stops. So it improves response times, even if that fire crew can't do anything until another fire crew arrive. So again, it shows a positive uplift in data, which for Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service needs to happen, because their response rates are really poor, but it doesn't actually improve public safety. So to sum up, and if fellow councillors agree, I've got grave concerns about the 3 rider policy that they allude to on page 33 of the document. It will put firefighters in our town at unnecessary risk, and it will not improve public safety. The only positive is that it will massage data and make the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner look better. Lies, damn lies and statistics. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Salt. I think that certainly resonated a great deal with me. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I was going to say, I think rather than us writing any sort of response to this as a group, as a council, it would have more impact if we did it individually. Rather, I think as a council response, it would be given more weight, I think, if it was done individually as councillors. And I should certainly fill it in, and I would urge all councillors to fill it in, and the greater council, not just this committee. I think that would carry a lot more weight than just sending a letter from the council, because I think that would go straight in the bin. They might all still go straight in the bin, I don't know. As with a lot of these consultations, it's a done deal, but we don't know that for sure, but you know, it possibly could be. So I just wanted to say that I shall certainly fill it in. I would urge others to do it as well.
The point, that survey that I've just looked at, there's not none of that.
No, it won't, because sorry, through the chair.
That's the point.
Yeah, the
Filling that
questions are
survey
loaded.
in does not highlight
No.
that issue.
No.
The questions, if you look at the survey, the questions are loaded.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even give you the opportunity, unless you've read the consultation document that's over 40 pages long. And you notice that on page 33, the questions are designed in a way not to even ask you about a 3 rider policy, it asks you things about response changes. And unless you can put 2 and 2 together, you can't make that clear. Does that make sense?
Well, can I maybe ask then, Chair, through you, our Chief Officer puts out a link to this survey and also to that document so that we can have a quick look at it. I'm sure that can be done, Sarah, can it not? I think that would carry more weight rather than just, you know, a trial letter from the council just saying we don't like this, is not going to do a lot of good. I think if we fill the survey in properly, each of us, it would carry more weight.
I still think, Chair, I think you're right, councillor Jones, I think sheer volume would be good, but I would still suggest that we.
I'll do that as well then, if you like, but I'm not going to argue against that, but I certainly think we should do it individually.
Yeah.
Councillor Salt?
I've sent this response to Sarah in anticipation to help her with the minutes because I went on for quite a prolonged period of time. But if Sarah wants to use that to send town council response, and obviously I'd be really grateful because my husband's one of those firefighters that will be at risk if people filled in that survey, and the public are at risk as well. It's not making things better. So yeah, I'd be grateful, councillor Jones, if we all did it. Thank you. And if, as Dave said, we could also write, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
If I may, then there's two responses that we're required to do. So I'll write one incorporating your feedback, and then on the police and crime one, we're basically saying we want more.
Yeah.
Feet on the street.
More people.
Do you want to raise any CCTV issues there?
Yes.
We've talked a lot about that.
So, sorry, councillor Salt, did you?
To formalise the fact that they need to invest. I know that it's a district council responsibility to provide CCTV, but I think the police have a responsibility to feed into that as well, don't they? Feed into the funding for that. So I think we'd like to, if everybody agrees, say that we want the police to invest in funding in Biddle for CCTV, permanent CCTV.
So we're clear on the response that's going to go to direct to the police, fire and crime, to Mr. Adams. We're all in agreement with councillor Jones that as many of us as possible need to get ourselves online and fill in this survey.
We should facilitate that, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Want to propose or second it for those actions?
Yeah, councillor Proudle will propose at second. Councillor Jones? Show of hands. Thank you, that's unanimous. I think, was that unanimous? Of course. Okay, thanks, everybody. Job, it's coming down from this now to the next, but jobs for the lensman. Do we have any jobs for the lensman?
Oh, Nigel.
Nigel does. Okay, so councillor Yates?
Yes, firstly, just really, did we have the money from district council to do those 3 footpath repairs?
Not that I'm aware of that.
I will chase him up because I've chased him a couple of times. He keeps saying, I'll do it today. I'll do it today. Right, so I'll chase that. Yeah. Because I did walk those footpaths and they hadn't been done. So I didn't think it was down to us. Down to the other thing is, I had the cabinet member for highways, county councillor DeVille, to Biddle to look through a number of projects and issues. And I showed him the overgrown footpath, for want of a better term, I wouldn't call it the verge, on Halls Road, which the environment team at county were tasked to do, and they haven't done it yet. Since I showed him, there is a bush of ivy which is actually blown over and fall over, so it's partly blocked at this moment in time. And his response was, "Do you have a lensman?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, it'd be an awful lot cheaper for the lensman to do it than it would to get Amy to do it as contractors, because just raising the paperwork would be more expensive than doing the job." I have sympathy for that. So he says, if you can ask your lensman to do that job, email me the invoice personally, and I will ensure it gets paid. Now, I would suggest, I'm not going to say the word propose, that we take him at his word and we do that as an experiment, because he then went on to say, if in the future there are other jobs of a similar ilk, which are obviously fall on the highways, but are certainly within the capability of the lensman, then that is a route which we should be considering. So I would suggest, I don't want to propose at this moment in time, and I don't want the list, but I would suggest that we take him at his word and give it a go. I'm not going to propose that.
Sadly, we're being recorded, or I'd say that we invoice first.
Yeah, well,
Um,
well, I don't know, it's impossible at the moment, so either me and Wayne will do it or we can.
Councillor Kosicki.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Sarah, was it the town council lensman that got the hedge around the stop sign on Halls Road? Because there was a contractor, I don't know whether it was a preferred contractor for the town council or the county council, but that was the only bit of the hedge that was cut. And it's completely overgrown anyway.
It was a highways environmental team.
Yeah, and the road was closed, so I couldn't understand why
You didn't cut the
the
rest.
contractor didn't cut the whole of the hedge while the road was closed.
Information.
I have gone back to him and say, why didn't you cut up to the junction? Because there's cars actually having to move towards the middle of the road because the hedge can scratch the cars. So they're supposed to be coming back to finish the job, which will invariably mean a road closure. But that's the issue. They will do, the cost of a road closure is horrendous. And that's even before you actually undo the back doors of the van.
The thing is, if the hedge was cut down properly, it would be easier to maintain in the future, but because it's so overgrown, it's just obscures everywhere.
Yeah.
There's no disagreement there. It's,
And the other thing is whether it's possible the lensman could cut the weeds on Station Road on the old mill site. It's very overgrown all along there. There's all weeds along the footpath, at the edge of the footpath.
Whereabouts you
It's
thinking?
on the old mill side, from the junction with, on Station Road, all left-hand side, there's all weeds along the footpath and by the mill. It's full of weeds.
No, I don't know.
if they did both jobs at the same.
The invoice first. Councillor Lawton.
This isn't a new job for the landsman. I rather think it's a job that he's already done. I was approached by a resident about repair needed to one of the steps leading from Craigside down to Dorset Drive. Number 13, it was reported, step, and the general untidiness of that immediate vicinity. Can I say that the step has been well repaired, very nicely repaired, and everything is nice, tidy and brushed, and it looks a great job. So if it was a lensman.
It was, I'll pass that on. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's lovely. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you. If I can just go back to Halls Road that we started with. If you'll pay for that, can we accept it, please? I've been approached by a few people regarding Halls Road and got pictures sent of it. It's a safe route to school, and it's getting, as you've got to walk on the road slowly. Within a short period of time, you will be walking on the road, children will, to school. So can we jump on that one, please, and send the bill in, make sure they pay it?
Yeah.
Well, safe route to school issue. Thank you.
Councillor Salt.
This is where my knowledge falls down because I don't understand finance. Can we raise a purchase order, if not an invoice?
Yeah, our system purchase orders. We would invoice when the work had been done, and usually we would then kind of pass on the invoice to demonstrate that the been spent.
Okay.
Councillor Jackson.
Well, I think this is probably the district, but it might be difficult to get them to actually do it. Some of the shrubbery around the roundabout on St John's Road roundabout are really obscuring the lights that we've put in. Now, as I understand it, we might be finishing that job off sometime next week. It would be an opportune moment to actually cut back some of those shrubs because they are growing quite big.
Yeah,
Would that be possible?
yeah, that's the intention.
All right, okay. Done it for you.
No, we haven't done it beforehand because when they've been fitting them in, they've been trampling all over it. So I thought if we chop it down when it's done and we put some extra, Mark and I have been talking about what plants to plant around it, something that doesn't require any effort but actually is a nice show of colour.
Assuming Councillor Salt's hand went up about this very point.
Did, because I've got a point of information. The reason why those shrubs appeared is because when I was kicking off about the state of the miners' lamps 4 years ago, they planted them, when they chopped the miners' lamps off, they planted them to try and make them look better and just have something there and pretended they were looking after the area. What they've actually done is just planted them and left them, and now it's gone like a flipping jungle. And now we've got the lamps back. The bushes that they've planted are not appropriate. They were appropriate to disguise the fact that the lanterns were gone. Now they've gone. So they actually, I think, through the chair, they actually need to go because they're not appropriate anymore.
Yeah.
Nice. It's trimmed.
Be cutting down.
Yeah,
But if they're not going to be trimmed, it's better off getting rid.
but they will be trimmed this year.
Okay. Do we have any more for any more? Okay, that is now farewell to our YouTube.